All right, everybody, let's get started. So, today in our live, we're going to be doing a quick Q&A. So, if you saw yesterday and today, we had the anticipation post and we were asking people to submit some of their questions in terms of what are your questions about credit or business credit? And we got a couple, so let's just jump right in. The first question that we had submitted was actually, how do I get higher limits when I apply for business credit and business loans? Now, this is a really common question that we get from clients and people in our community. When you're applying, you might hear about people getting like $50,000 or even $500,000 approvals. And you might be stuck getting like a $10,000 approval. Maybe you're going to Chase Bank, you're applying online, and you're just getting hit with little 10K or a 5K limit. And if you're a real estate investor like anyone else in this community, that's not really going to cut it for what you're looking to do. Most of you are looking for at least $50,000. And some people, like our clients, are banging that out with just a single Chase application. Well, how are they doing it, right? What's the secret sauce? What are the people doing who do get high approvals that the people who don't get high approvals aren't doing? And there's a few different things that I'm going to cover here that you want to make sure you're covering your bases on before you apply to assure those high limits, okay? And this is really important because you need to think about it this way. If you have a business and you're applying for like a business line of credit at Chase Bank, once you apply for that line of credit, your app is in, and Chase now has all of your business information. They've looked at your credit. That was your shot. So if you get approved, you can always try to increase that later, but it's much more effective just to give them the right information up front and get that high limit right off the bat, right? So do yourself the favor and learn this kind of stuff. Now, this all being said, the first thing to make sure that you have is good personal credit. And this isn't really something that necessarily is going to get you a super high limit, but this is what's going to get your foot in the door, right? You need to be a low risk applicant for the bank. And the way you become a low risk applicant for a bank is by having strong personal credit, right? Because these banks, they usually don't care too much about your financial documentation. Even if you're making like 1.5 million a year in revenue, if you have a bankruptcy on your credit report, you're not getting squat. Okay, so having good personal credit gets your foot in the door. Make sure that you don't have any collections, no charge offs, no bankruptcy, preferably 99% or more payment history, and you should be good to go. Have a few personal credit cards, right? Show the banks that you have good payment history and you have long standing accounts. This is going to be the key. Now, when the banks pull your credit after you apply, they're going to decide right then and there whether or not they want to apply you, mostly based on that. Okay, so if your credit is clean, they're going to decide to approve you. If your credit's not clean, they're going to deny you right out the gate. You're going to get an instant denial because a software algorithm that does their underwriting is usually going to pick up on that and deny you. Now, once you have clean credit and you check that off your list, what's the next thing you want to do? And this is where we get into actually getting those high limits. Well, first of all, and this is again going back to your personal credit report, you want to have what's called strong comparable credit. So the banks will do something called mirroring, meaning people will get, for example, like a $50,000 business credit card at US Bank. Well, oftentimes a big component of that is because the banks are actually seeing that you have like a 20, 30, or $40,000 personal credit card already. And if that personal credit card has been around for at least a year and you've made a lot of good positive payments on it, the banks are going to see that you can wield a high amount of debt on the personal side, and that's going to encourage them to give you a higher limit on the business side. Okay, so it's really important to have high limit personal credit cards. A lot of you watching this, you might only have like $500, 1,000 personal credit cards. Call the number on the back of your card, ask them if they do a hard inquiry for a credit line increase, and if they say yes, just say thank you and hang up. If they say no, they don't do a hard inquiry, request a credit line increase. And what you want to do is you want to tell them a story, right? You want to give them a reason to give you the increase. Say that you need to increase expenditure on your credit card because you're remodeling your kitchen or you're going on vacation and you'd like to spend more on the card to acquire more points, or really any reason to get your personal credit card limits raised, and you want to repeat this process every 90 days. So literally put it in your calendar, call the number on the back of your card, get that credit line increase, and this is what's going to help you build strong comparable credit. So this process might take 3, 6, or maybe even 9 months, but you need to look at this as an investment in yourself and in your financial future. Because if you have strong personal credit and good comparable credit, you're going to get approved for really high limits on the business side. Now, moving on to the third point here, this is going to be previous bank relationships. Okay, so give you an example. Let's say you're applying for a business line of credit at Bank of America, and 5 years ago, you had an auto loan with Bank of America, or maybe currently you have a savings account, personal savings or business savings with Bank of America. Point is, Bank of America recognizes you as a past or a current customer, and this builds trust. Banks like retaining their customers, okay? So if you've borrowed money, for example, or deposited money from Bank of America before and you've paid it back successfully, they trust you more. And because they trust you more, not only do you have a higher approval odd, but you also have a greater chance of getting a high limit. So dissecting what the banks view and deem as trustworthy is exactly what's going to help you get those really high limit business credit cards. Okay, so previous bank relationships. This could be personal checking and savings, business checking and savings, personal credit cards, business credit cards, auto loans, personal loans, business loans, literally anything that the bank has given you or you've given the bank in return. This is considered a bank relationship. And you want to target the banks that you have current relationships with, because this is where you're going to have the best approval odds and the highest credit limits. Okay. And then finally, we want to talk about bank relationship managers. Now, a bank relationship manager is basically a business relationship that you have with a bank, and this is an individual person. Okay, so these people usually work in corporate offices. They are specialized in helping business owners get approved for business credit. Now, if you're applying at PNC and you go and apply online, an algorithm is going to review your application. It's going to pull your credit, and it's probably going to spitball a low approval. But if you were to go into a PNC branch and actually apply through a business bank relationship manager, that bank relationship manager has their own underwriter who they can communicate with and successfully vouch for you and your business. So these people literally are the gatekeepers between the underwriters for business approvals and the business owners who come into the bank looking to apply. So if you can get in touch with one of these bankers by walking into a bank and sometimes simply asking for one, or if you do exceptional revenue on your business and get introduced to one, these people can actually pull some strings and help you turn a $15,000 approval into a $50,000 approval. And when you get four $50,000 approvals at 4 different banks, you have $200,000, right? So checklist for you. Have good personal credit. Get those credit line increases on the personal side and make sure that you have strong comparable credit. Make sure that you have existing bank relationships with the right banks. A lot of the classics are going to be Chase, Amex, B of A, US Bank, etc. And then finally, make sure that you have the bank relationship managers so that when you're applying, you're not just cold applying online. Okay, you want to actually be applying through an individual who's qualified, who works with the bank, and is going to help you get in direct contact and communicate with underwriting for you. This is how people are getting such high approvals. Okay, so they have good credit, they have the bank relationship, they have strong personal credit cards, and they're applying that way rather than just not taking care of their credit and then going online, firing off an application, and then you're just hitting a brick wall with a software that's going to give you a low approval. So don't do that. Now, the second question that was asked was, in your experience, what are the biggest things holding people back from reaching their business credit goals, their business funding goals? So that's a great question. Now, in my opinion, the number one thing is going to be poor credit, right? So America runs on small businesses. The biggest issue small businesses have is lack of access to capital. And the biggest reason businesses don't have access to capital is poor personal credit. So I think that the statistics really drive that point home. Um, Traditional banks love people with good credit scores. Okay. Like I said before, they don't care as much about your financials. If you want to go to get like a private money or a hard money loan, that kind of stuff comes into play a bit more. Traditional banks, like the ones we see today that we have our checking and savings account at, they really want to see good credit scores on the personal side. So take care of your personal credit, okay? And on that front, there's a few different things that I see happen with personal credit that causes denials for people. The first is going to be, as a business owner, you're using personal credit cards to pay for business expenses. Don't do that. Okay. A lot of business owners do that. And that's because you're focused on running your business, right? We get it. Um, the thing that makes the most sense for you in the time is just to pull from whatever capital you have available. But what you really want to do is get business credit cards, use that for your business expenses. And then that protects your personal credit. So you're not running up your personal credit cards. Because once you run up and max out your personal credit cards and invest with them, and the banks see that, they're not giving you money. And the reason is because they see how much money you currently owe to other banks, or maybe even the bank themselves that you're applying at. So having low credit utilization and not using your personal credit cards for business expenses, huge pitfall that I see business owners fall into. Now, another one is going to be hard inquiries. A lot of people, they don't understand what the banks are looking for. They're applying left and right. They're getting denied. They're getting approved for some. But at some point, you have like 20 hard inquiries on your credit report. No matter what the rest of your credit report looks like, if you have too many hard inquiries, you're hitting that brick wall. The banks are not going to approve you. So if you need inquiry removal, that's something that we can talk about. Any fraudulent inquiries, we'll remove them for $20 per inquiry. If that interests you, and you see this video, go ahead and just type inquiry down below, and I'll actually personally message you and make sure that you get in touch with our guys. So not a problem there. But hard inquiries, that's another big reason. Derogatory marks, so collections, charge-offs, bankruptcies, that kind of stuff will really hold people back. If that's you, I would strongly recommend working with a professional credit repair service that can help you get those derogatories removed. Okay, so yeah, derogatory marks, those are going to cause denials left and right. You definitely don't want to have any kind of derogatory mark on your credit report when you're applying for business credit. And unfortunately, a high percentage of Americans do have collections and charge offs on their credit report currently. So it's very common, and it makes getting business funding with traditional banks extremely difficult. Okay. Now, furthermore, some other reasons why people have a hard time getting approved for business credit honestly just comes down to lack of education, right? So Sophia and I, we're pretty well versed in what these bank underwriters are looking for to give you an approval. And a lot of people that we talk to, they're like, "Oh, I have an 800 credit score. You don't have to worry about me." Well, at the end of the day, if you have an 800 credit score, then why don't you already have $200,000 in business funding at 0% interest? Exactly. It's because you don't know how to do it, right? And the banks, yeah, you could have a really good credit score. You're probably going to get approved for some lending products if you were to try to apply, but you're not going to get the high limits, right? And a lot of the time, people are going to struggle because they don't know how to properly structure their business before going to the banks. No, I'm not talking about having a business domain, having a business email, business phone number, and website. Not talking about that kind of stuff. We're talking about the actual structure and the description that you give the banks about your business to make sure that you are placed in categories that deem you as low risk, right? And properly understanding what the banks want to see and properly describing your business to make sure that the banks don't see you as a threat, right? You need to make sure that when you're applying for business funding, you are going to be a low risk investment for the banks. And there's certain kind of language and ways to structure your business entity that really are going to assist you in doing that. And that's something a lot of business owners just don't know the game to, right? So that's a big part right there. Furthermore, there's education on your credit report. So not knowing that a certain number of hard inquiries in a short time frame can really affect your approvals. You don't want to have more than like 5 hard inquiries in the last 6 months. If you do, I would really encourage you to either wait that time out and let those inquiries fall off, or, like I said, in touch with a professional credit repair team that can remove those for you if they're fraudulent inquiries. Um, People don't know about things like comparable credit. So If you only have one credit card and it's a $500 limit, but you have a 730 credit score, your credit score is good, but your credit report needs some work because it's not thick enough. You only have one credit card, right? So you want to work on these things and really become educated on what the banks are looking for. And the way to become educated is to literally go through our guide sections and watch all of our videos in this community because I've dropped all the sauce so far. So if you want to learn about personal credit, business credit, go to the guide section, watch literally all of our mini courses. We've got 8 of them out, and I'm dropping the ninth mini course tomorrow, actually, around noon Eastern time. That's where you're going to get all the sauce, okay? So that's where you want to be, and that's how you're going to get educated on what the banks want to see, right? Just going through our content. We're teaching you the game right here. Now, people also don't know how to answer application questions correctly. So, for example, banks really like to know that you are paid and that you're employed. They like to know what kind of revenue and household income numbers are going to be put there, right? Like, people need to know how to properly apply for business credit products because the application itself, I mean, there really is kind of a science to it. And people don't realize that quite often, if you hover your mouse over the little question mark where it's asking for, like, for example, personal income, quite often it's actually asking for household income, right? The income of your entire household, not just yourself. And people don't realize that you can be putting these things on your applications to accurately answer the questions and that this will actually affect your approval, right? So don't be shy about the numbers, right? Read what the application's actually asking you, and you'd be surprised. A lot of the times, these applications are worded to be in your favor as an applicant, but people don't really study the applications like that. So, how would you know? You're just going to read it and you're going to answer the first thing that comes to your mind. So, being educated on application data points, that's really important as well. Um, Applying at the wrong banks, that's another one. Certain banks are going to be more favorable than others. A lot of people think that they can just go apply at like Citibank and they're going to get approved for 50K. No, there's certain banks that are lending out larger amounts of money. Focusing on banks that you have a current relationship with is really going to help you as well, like I said earlier. So just kind of knowing the banks and all of their lending products, that's going to be important because US Bank has different lending products than Key Bank. Key Bank tends to be better for the business lines of credit, whereas American Express tends to be better for like the business credit cards, right? So go into the banks, talk to them, call the banks on the phone, ask them about their lending products, ask them, hey, do you offer business lines of credit? If so, what are your requirements? Do you require 2 years tax returns? Do you lend up to 50K, no documentation? What are your personal credit requirements? Can I have a 680 credit score and be approved? Talk to the banks, become a student of the game, educate yourself because the more questions you ask, the more answers you're going to ask, and the more answers you're going to get. And the more answers you get, the more success you're going to have in your funding journey because every time you ask a question and you get an answer, you're going to remember that in one day, 6 months, 6 years, however long from now, that's going to come into play and that's going to help you even more on your funding journey. And capital will no longer be an issue for you. Okay, so what are the biggest pitfalls I see when people don't get approved? It's really having poor personal credit and then from there, not being educated. And if you're educated, then you're going to know how to clean up and improve your personal credit as well. So, education really is the key. Learn what the banks want to see, follow all of the guide sections in our community. I'm out here spreading the game every single Wednesday, answering people's questions, giving people what they want to hear. It's all in the guide section. So, on that note, those are our 2 questions that were submitted. Hope this was helpful to anyone watching. And tomorrow at about 12 p.m. Eastern time, I am going to be dropping mini course 9, and it's going to be a good one. So, I'll see you there. For anyone who's interested in funding, needs up to $150,000 in the next 30 days at 0% interest, go ahead and just comment the word funding down below this post. I'll actually reach out to you personally. We'll schedule a quick conversation and we can see if it's a good fit for you, okay? Because Sophia and I are getting people in our community up to $150,000 in just a 30-day period. That's all I got for today. See you next week. Bye.